Hello everyone, welcome back. You're watching Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 209. I'm Enigmius and today we're inside the small ring of the saucer section. You can see we've got a lot of walls in place. And now this episode is going to be just some testing different textures and colors and lights to kind of get a feel for what may or may not work within this space. And I'm going to be focusing on the hallways because that's probably one of the most important areas to my way of thinking. There are 192 individual rooms in the small ring of the saucer section as I've built it. There's 48 rooms per deck and there's 4 decks, which is a lot of rooms. So realistically speaking, most people who get the blueprints will never even see inside all of those rooms. It's just the way it's probably going to go. But the hallways, when you're traveling around, is fairly important that those kind of be presentable at the very least, because it's going to be the same thing throughout all of the hallways. So there may be plenty of hallways that a person would never see, but they will see some of the hallways and they will be the same as the other ones that they didn't see. So we kind of have to be a little bit cautious. For the floor, we're doing the flat texture, the carpet texture, as I'm starting to think of it as. I honestly, I don't remember what the floor was in the show, but I'll probably take a look, and if we're too far off with what I'm doing here, there's nothing saying that I can't make any adjustments. We're doing a relatively small section just so that I can get a feel for how everything goes together. And you can see we've got all kinds of different textures that I'm messing around with, and I'm editing out all of the selection menus from the video just to save a little bit of time and a little bit of flicker. There's really not a lot to be gained from seeing a fraction of a second that the window is up and then it's gone anyways. So you can see we've got a fairly significant variety of textures that we can be using, and for some reason I had myself convinced that when they added the feature to be able to turn textures on the blocks by shooting them again with a texture gun, that you could turn them a full 360 degrees, sort of in 90-degree increments, but you can't. You can only turn them 90 degrees and then turn them back to their original orientation. So that kind of makes it a little bit difficult when choosing textures because they'll end up in some places upside down. There are times in that situation, depending on the kind of block that you're working with, where you could change the orientation of the block itself, and that would allow you to get a little bit closer in terms of the orientation of the texture. But that's not always the case, especially like when you're looking at the 22.5-degree blocks. There's not much you can do. If it's not going to line up the texture the way that you want it to, then it's not going to. You can't fix it. So I was thinking about how high the ceilings should be, and I decided that 1 block high was too claustrophobic, 2 blocks high was a little bit too high, but better than 1 block high. So that's how we've got this. And I did actually give serious thought to trying to make 1.5 block high hallways, but the process of doing that would be painful, to say the least, and probably end up looking awful in the long run, because you wouldn't be able to make the transitions work all the way across the ceiling. So the halls are a little bit high. The rooms themselves have high ceilings. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily too high. We've got carpeted floors, in this case the navy blue floors, and then we've got some textures on the upper section of the wall that have the passive lighting, and then we've also got textures on the lower section of the wall that are purely cosmetic. There's no real specific reason why I chose those, aside from I tried a number of different options, and this is the one that I decided that, at least for now, I wanted to stick with and kind of see how things play out. The ceiling, the actual texture of the ceiling, again, just messing around with different textures to get a feel for what I like and what I think is working, and maybe what I don't like, what doesn't look like it's working. I tried a few different colors throughout this whole process. You may have noticed at the beginning of the video, or close to the beginning of the video, I was like a yellow color, and I was hoping it would be a little bit more just off-white, like white with just a hint of yellow in it, but it was too aggressive with the yellow, so that didn't work. And all of the other colors are I felt a bit too much. So we're painting everything basically light gray, the walls and the ceiling, and then I'll probably mess around with different colors. And the idea is that it's not garish. It's not the kind of color that just kind of jumps out at you and this is the color that I am. It's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be fairly subtle, and it kind of falls into the background. After a while, you don't even notice it anymore. I think that would be the ultimate success. People who spent a certain amount of time in this ship said, you know what, I don't even notice the walls anymore. That would be an indication that I did them well. Overall, I was really happy with the number of textures that have been added in the last few months. It's nice to have the choice. And the addition or the change, whatever it ended up being, so that textures now look more 3D, is also really cool. It makes things a lot more interesting to look at when they have that sense of depth to them, I guess, for lack of a better word. You can see this hallway, the dead end. Essentially, it's, if you were to punch a hole through this dead end here, you would be looking at the sphere in the middle of the saucer section. The time-consuming part about getting all of the rooms in place that I didn't really anticipate was making all the transitions between the walls that we put in place in the last episode and the outer walls of the saucer section, because once I got on a roll, it went fairly quickly to get all of the walls in place with the spokes and the circles that we had laid out, or pseudo circles. But once all of that was done and I was looking at it, I realized I had to connect all of those walls to the outer walls, and that took quite a bit of time. That's why this video is a little bit later, but I'm glad I got it done, and it is done, and I feel like I did it properly, for lack of a better word. I could have taken a lot of shortcuts. I could have not worried about it, but I decided that if I was going to go to all the time to set it up the way that I had, I might as well go all the way. So now, obviously, we're looking at different lighting options. I really like these lights. These are a fairly recent addition, so far as I can tell. They're the strip lights, but they fit up in the corner. And I know it's not really possible with the way the game is set up right now, but I wish that you could get variations that fit on 45-degree blocks and 22.5-degree blocks, so that your hallway can change direction the way ours do, and you could still tuck a light up in the corner the way that they are now, but that's not going to be an option. So what I'm trying to accomplish here is, first of all, getting the right color, intensity, and range for the lights so that we get the right lighting effect that we're looking for, and also getting the placement of the lights so that we get the coverage that we want. So you can see I'm going around and basically placing them in the corners at this intersection. It's a four-way intersection of the hallways, and placing them in such a way that each light is sort of shining down a hallway. It may not look like it necessarily directly, and there is a little bit of clipping where it kind of doesn't quite make it past the corner. But the way that it's set up is that we're getting fairly decent coverage all the way down the hallways, and then we just have to have a few lights going intermittently as we go. Some of the smaller ones, I think, is what we'll end up having in the corners, just tucked away so that they're attached to something solid, and they do what they need to do. Actually, I might even just put them on the ceiling. It'd probably be best, but you get the idea. The lights that we're using, we haven't placed a lot of them, but we're getting a lot of coverage. We're getting a lot of light in areas that otherwise wouldn't be as bright as they are now. So that's been one of my sort of focuses, is trying to get that worked out as well, and I'm not quite there yet. But what you see is a pretty good indication of where we're going. So the next episode, we'll probably be looking at the interior of the nacelles, because that's going to be the next big project once I get the rest of this taken care of. So if you want to be notified about the next episode, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.